it is my good pleasure to introduce a very important partner with me at Get Satisfaction, a guy that joined us about a year ago and that has made an amazing difference with our organization, with our team, but most importantly with our product. So with that, Dave Rowley, would you please join me?
Thank you. So this is what it's all about. We're about building amazing communities. And Wendy mentioned I've been here for about a year. And for the most part, our focus, our product development focus, has been centered on the capabilities that will allow you to build more amazing communities. So what does that mean? It's kind of an interesting term, but what do I mean by an amazing community? So to me, amazing communities do more than one thing, right? They might be an engine to generate original content that allows your prospects and customers to learn more about your products, to discover the products and services that you have to offer. It may help improve your search ranking on terms that are important to you that can drive traffic to your website that will hopefully turn into leads, that will turn into revenue, depending on your business model. It might help you reduce your support costs through ticket deflection. How many folks are here who really got into this whole community thing first and foremost as a way to solve a support problem? So a fair number. It might provide feedback on your product. It's a great way to collect and generate conversation about what your product could do and would do, and we've certainly benefited from that. And it's a way, it's sort of a fertile ground to cultivate advocates who not only use and who have bonded with your products and your brand, but they tell other people about that. And you'd like to take advantage of that and perhaps feature some of that content on your website, put it front and center. So interesting communities might do one of these things. And I bet there are a lot of communities out there that are really focused on one use case. But amazing communities do more than one thing. Maybe they do all these things. So that's the distinction I'd like to make. And that's what I really want to focus on today. And that's really what our product development efforts have been focused on, bringing you the capabilities that will lead to this sort of multi-use case, amazing community. So I'm going to stop showing slides and show you some software. I'm going to give you a sneak peek at some of the stuff that we've been working on with this lofty goal in mind. This is what your community might look like today if you viewed it on a device like this. So about a month ago, we released a new version of our mobile web application. But it's going somewhere. It's going beyond this sort of mobile version. So what I'm going to show you is sort of a new version of that software and some of the things that it can do now. So this is the same community as viewed in a new version of that mobile software. And it's, the layout is sort of optimized for that form factor, a smartphone factor. But now, let's say that you're viewing it on a tablet. So if you view it on a tablet, you can see that it responds to the size of the screen. So we're making use of something you might have heard of called responsive web design. And what that means is that the software is somewhat self-aware. It's aware of the real estate that it has to fill, and the layout is optimized to make the most of that available space. So what you saw when I sort of stretched it out to tablet size is that the community description sort of filled in. There's now a second column on the screen. And some things like the support links and information about the community would also fill in that right-hand column. So now what if I view it on a larger device? Let's hope that this monitor is big enough to show. Here, I'm going to All right. So now, at its larger size, it adapts again. And a little bit subtle here, but categories now are sort of placed front and center at the top. So let me do it again, just so that you can kind of see the transitions. All right, so as we get smaller, you can see there's a breakpoint, right? So boom, it changes once. And then I think this display is just slightly too small for me to manually zoom that. But if I do that, you can see it change again. So that's what we mean by responsive design. So that's kind of funny. We started with a mobile version of our website, and now we've made it responsive. Well, what that mobile version of the website that we released last month really is it's the basis of our next generation community. Sometimes internally we have a code name for this. We call it C2 because it's really sort of our community UI 2.0. So I might accidentally say that, and so I'm telling you so that you'll know what the heck I'm talking about. But there are a few other things I want to point out. It's not just about responsive web design, as sort of interesting as that might be, and as useful as that might be for a consistency point of view. There's some other things that we've done based on our learnings and our experience with the needs of consumers. A note about the responsive thing is that really what drove that, it wasn't sort of a technology decision per se, but it was a realization that consumers these days, it's not out of the ordinary to start a conversation from your phone on your way into work, follow up on your desktop computer in the office, and then check it again from your tablet in your living room when you get home. That kind of flow is just normal, right? And that will just be the case. So we think it's important that somebody who's doing that has a consistent experience throughout. So that's why we chose to go in this direction rather than having sort of a very distinct interface for mobile versus tablet versus desktop. We wanted to optimize and take advantage of the real estate in each one of those situations, but also provide a consistent experience. So a few of the other things that I'll point out. So I mentioned that those categories sort of jump out top and front and center here. And we're going to be putting a lot more emphasis on categories as a primary navigational element within the community. So it gives you the ability to organize your content. So I keep using this term categories. What's a category? Well, you might be familiar with the notion of having products or services. You can do that today, so you can name a number of products. So we're just generalizing that a bit, right? We're saying, well, products and services are two examples of categories. And here in this example community, you can see that the categories that have been chosen are around products, specific bicycles that this Valley Bikes company offers. But they also have a category that's about shipping, right? So that's a very different kind of category. But they've chosen to organize their content and their conversations that way. So, so we make categories more prominent because they are a more important part of the discovery process for consumers. Here you can see I've got a sort of a category view that shows you top content within each category. So category is more important. Category pages are like landing pages that are specific to your product. So it's a facility to create a product-specific subcommunity, if you will. And we haven't really tricked this community out with a lot of extra content associated with this category, but you can imagine how that could be done. So categories are also important because they're going to play a big role in some other capabilities around access control. And so I'll talk about that in a bit. But there's another kind of ulterior motive for putting categories as such a prominent piece of our community platform. So the other thing that we're doing is that we're putting more emphasis on users because we want to promote engagement. So here's a pretty involved conversation. It's got a number of replies and that sort of thing. And a number of people have sort of engaged with this. So now we have the ability to actually sort of drill down and see who else has this question, who else is following this. So we're incorporating a lot more information about users in the community, again, to drive engagement and to meet that need that I mentioned earlier about finding other people like you who have similar interests. Why would we want to promote engagement? Well, engagement tends to generate content. Content benefits you for a number of reasons, multiple reasons, right? That information gets crawled by search engine robots. That information then is more discoverable. You're more likely to land on that page when somebody does a search. And believe it or not, that's the way most people get into the community, is by doing a Google search. And there's an important point I want to make here, because it's a bit of a nuanced point, but it's really important. You'll notice that in this sort of conversation detail view, right here on in the sidebar, I've got related conversations. So imagine the scenario where somebody has done a Google search on Cavalier mountain bike gears or something like that. And because we rank, we help you rank high from an SEO standpoint, there's a good chance that I'll link to this topic, to this conversation appeared in those Google results, along with a bunch of other things, maybe other conversations within your community, but who knows, maybe conversations that are happening about your competitors' products. So somebody clicks on this link and they arrive here. Now maybe their search was so specific and this content was so spot on that they get the information they were looking for first try, right? It's there. Oh, that's exactly what I was hoping to find out. But there's a good chance that that's not the case. So if I didn't show any related content, what are they going to do? They're going to hit the back button. They're going to go back out to the Google search results. And they're going to go down to the next link. And you don't know where that's going. So anything that we can do to sort of broaden the net here and show maybe, oh, maybe that's not exactly what you're looking for, but here's some other stuff that's related, that keeps people engaged. And hopefully they'll be satisfied. They'll be able to get the information that they wanted. Maybe they'll respond. Maybe they have an opinion of their own, creating more content, adding more value. So that's sort of a nuanced point that was based on our learning and thinking about how search works and the important role that search plays in content discovery in your community. And so we made that a sort of an important design feature of our next generation community. So the other thing I'll point out, and it was sort of illustrated, you could kind of see it for yourself as I was sizing the screen. This page is made up of blocks of content, right? So you can see that there's a block of content that represents the description. The category list here is a block of content. This search interface is a block of content. The conversation lists are blocks of content. Community stats, support links, those are little blocks of content. And we call these blocks gadgets. We just made that up, but it seemed like with the jargon robot theme, that gadgets seemed to be an appropriate term to use. So we call those gadgets, and we already used the word widgets for something else, so gadgets they are. So you can imagine that these gadgets, they respond to the changes in the layout as you resize the screen. So those gadgets are really filling spots in a template that defines the layout. So in the future, our customization and extensibility story are going to be grounded in this capability. So we're going to provide the ability to create gadgets that can be included in this page. And we're going to give you the ability to define or select from templates that perhaps include or exclude certain gadgets. So you can choose what things you want to present to your customers, because maybe your use case or your business might emphasize one thing or another. And eventually, we'll provide a template editor that will allow you to sort of place gadgets on the page. So not only are these blocks sort of defined so that they can arrange themselves based on that responsive layout, but they're the building blocks of future communities. All right, so I've been really focusing on that, I think the purple characters that I was looking at before, your customers, consumers, but now I want to show you what we're doing for you, for community managers, support managers, the folks that are in the community all day managing all this. Before I leave here, I will point out one other thing, just from a design aesthetic point of view. Now, colors and those types of things can be styled, and you're going to want to be able to style each one of these gadgets. But you will notice that we've sort of adopted and embraced the flat design, which everybody is talking about and everybody's going to. So we, it's not just because that's the fad. I mean, okay, a little bit of it is because that's the fad. But really, if you're thinking about having a consistent and good experience across a variety of devices, you need to think in terms of what renders best on a small handheld device. And really, that's why we took this mobile-first approach to our design. We did the mobile version of our community and then built out from that rather than the other way around. The flat design actually sort of lends itself very well to that sort of display. So you lose a lot of the beveling and shading and drop shadows and all that stuff, which is really just taking up extra pixels that might not render so well or look so great when your color depth is limited. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. It might have a little bit to do with the fad, too. All right, so on to the next generation of our management console. So as community managers, you're spending all day in the community. And like I said before, it's really important for you to attend to those things that are most urgent. So you want to see a filtered list of the things that you care about. And then you want to very quickly be able to take action on those things, right? So we are leveraging a very familiar metaphor. In fact, if you use email, you probably already know how to use this. So the idea here is that we have a filtered list of conversations. You can see I've got a few different default views here. So all conversations, today's, conversations that have no employee participation. You can imagine others. And those sort of define these items here. And then it's a tabular view. So at a glance, I get to see something about those individual items. But now, here's that one that we were looking at before. If I click on this, then you get sort of the detailed view. So this is everything that we were looking at back in the community, including all of the responses. And the idea is that you're spending all day here, so you need to be able to do everything here. You don't flip-flop between this view and this tool and the tool and the view that your consumers are using, because you have very different needs, right? So everything that you can do to a conversation is supported here. All of the actions, archiving, closing, merging, moving, removing, editing, replying, changing the state, changing the category or categories that it's associated with, tags, all the good stuff. It's all here, right? So we're not going to take you away from this to do the important stuff that you have to do, which is actually to respond and to fulfill the needs of your consumers. So editing capabilities here. Again, the driving sort of design goals were around efficiency, visibility, and workflow. Okay. So yes, you can take actions on individual items, like I've shown, but sometimes maybe you wanted to take an action on more than one item. Oops. And so you can do that too. Here, I'll close that detailed view. So maybe I want to do something like a bulk archive or a bulk remove or something like that. You can do that too, just like you would do in Gmail or something like that, right? So there are certain actions that you can take on multiple items at once, and then you can dig in and do everything that you need to do on the individual detailed view. All right. Oh, the other thing is that, well, you can start a new conversation, right? So that's something that community managers do all the time. So you have the ability to create a new conversation. We have a nice WYSIWYG editor, so you can make it all pretty. You can decide what type of conversation it is. You can decide which category it belongs to. So everything that you'd want to do, all right? All right, so I alluded to this a little bit at the beginning, but this notion of having detailed views is pretty critical because that is the bit that allows you to focus on only those items that pertain to you. So we've got some default views here, but there's also this notion of being able to go in and decide how you want to filter that view. You can also go in and specify which of the columns are important to you in your tabular view. And at this point, we have a few sort of canned, predefined default views, but you can imagine the direction we're going with this. You'll be able to sort of save your own views and maybe have shared views, so everybody within the organization has a particular view, but maybe you have your own personal views because you only respond to praise that's about your product or something like that. That's like the happiest job in the world that nobody has. There's one more thing that I can't demonstrate for you now, but it's definitely something we're working on as sort of the next follow-on capability. And this really gets to sort of the powerful workflow capabilities. But it's the ability to assign a conversation to an individual within the organization so that they can track it to closure, right? And the ability to attach notes to a conversation that are not published. In other words, the consumer doesn't see it, but it gives you the ability to coordinate and collaborate on a response before you sort of post the official response. So assignments and notes are follow-on capabilities that we're working on next. If there was one theme that I hear about most from some of our bigger customers, it's around controlling access to content. So we're working on that. And this is where that whole, why categories are so important. So categories is going to be the mechanism that we use to control access to content. So you can imagine that you have a couple of public categories, maybe based on your products, and you have conversations that are in one or both products, because maybe you have a conversation that's product-specific, but it's also in the FAQ category or something like that. So you can do that. But then let's say you have a private category. And what I mean by private is that maybe it's only open to a private beta sub-community, a group of people who you want to be able to talk amongst themselves about beta software, but you don't want that sort of generally seen by the community at large, right? So the idea here is that you would create a category that would have this sort of access control capability, and then content that is created that's associated with that category would inherit those properties. So that's a mechanism to basically have private subcommunities within a public community. Sometimes people use that terminology. There's another interesting use case that you can also imagine, which is when you're talking about these private categories, you think of them in terms of like a role, right? So somebody is an employee, and so they have visibility into this category, or maybe it's a category for champs or something like that, right? It's a role-based. But the topic author can also be thought of as a role. So you can imagine having a category that has as its control property that it's visible to the topic author and to employees. And so with some special UI treatment in the front end, you could create conversations that are associated with the special category that the author sees and your employees see. Now, go back to, in your head, to that management view, M2, and imagine that I have a view which is all the private conversations about this particular product, because I support this one product. Those are the ones that's probably the most important, because these are conversations that are between a single individual and me, and I want to be able to respond to them quickly. So by using that particular attribute of categories in that way, you fulfill sort of this private messaging need. And later, you can choose, just like with a private beta community or category, you could choose at a later time to sort of open it up, right? You've had this private conversation amongst your beta users, and now the community population at large could benefit from that, so you sort of lift that restriction. You could probably also do that with some private conversations, but there's probably sort of mutual consent required in that case. So that's kind of where we're going with content access control, and this is something that we've started working on, and we'll be continuing to make progress. We'll probably also involve folks in beta testing this. I know I've already gotten feedback and input from probably a number of you in this room about this, and it's really informed the direction that we're going. The use cases that you bring to us are the ones that we use when we sort of think this stuff through. All right, so needless to say, we're doing some cool things with our front-end apps, and you'll get some benefit from that almost immediately. But underlying all this stuff, we've been doing some significant innovation in the underlying platform. So the C2 community, the M2 business console are examples of our next generation applications that are built on top of our next generation platform. Now, when I say next generation platform, that doesn't mean that it's incompatible with the software that you use every day today. In fact, we're doing this in an evolutionary manner so that they continue, so nobody is going to have to migrate all of their community data from one system to another. So it's sort of an evolution, and these two systems sit side by side and are compatible with the same underlying data model, the community data itself. But this new platform does expose a new class of APIs that these new applications use. And we decided early on that we were going to restrict our application development efforts to only those things that could be done through our own APIs. And the idea here is that these APIs will become public, and we will encourage third parties and customers to build their own interesting applications on top of them. So we wanted to make sure that we were eating our own dog food. And we figured that these are some pretty complex applications, and so if the APIs can support those needs, then they will serve broader needs as well. So just a few examples of some of the things that you'll be able to do in the new APIs that our existing APIs don't quite support yet. You'll be able to get a list of members in the community and their email addresses so you can export to an email marketing system. You can perform moderation actions in an integrated system like your CRM system. You can get a list of people who are following a particular topic or have Me Too'd it or have started a reply, that sort of thing. You can get statistics on your community, the number of conversations that have been posted, total conversation count, member and employee counts, that kind of thing. Or you could sort of generate a list based on replies or reply counts so that you can see most recent activity and surface that in some interesting way. So later on this year, probably towards the end of the summer, mid to end of summer, we're going to open up this API to third parties. And we're doing that because we want folks to build interesting applications on top of this. But we have another motive, and that gets back to that whole gadget thing that I was talking about earlier. Gadgets are the building blocks of the new community interface. We want third parties to be able to build gadgets that can plug into that template. And so this new API is sort of a very important piece of that. And the capabilities of the platform to accommodate this sort of plug-in architecture are very sort of a driving design goal for this. So, so that's sort of gives you an idea of where we're going from a customization and extensibility standpoint. You can imagine, for example, a leaderboard gadget that might be something that we provide and you can sort of put into your community, or maybe it's based on a third party who has a leaderboard gadget that makes use of this sort of plug-in interface. The other thing I'll mention is that some of you might use our Engage widgets, and some of you may have localized communities. So actually within the next couple of weeks, we're going to be releasing localized versions of our Engage widgets. We know that that's a big deal for some folks who care about widgets, care about localization. All right. So it all comes back to this. We want to help you build amazing communities. And like I said before, amazing communities solve more than one problem. They appear consistently wherever your customers are. They are the cross-functional centerpiece for a customer-focused business. We're rebuilding our applications and platform to do this more effectively than we've ever done it before. And we're going to be releasing these enhancements on an ongoing and regular basis, like we did with the mobile community app, followed by the fully responsive version later this quarter. And then the new conversation and user management capabilities will also be coming out very soon. And then support for private messaging, content access control. So we're rolling these things out continuously. And again, we've done it in such a way that it sort of builds upon itself. And I feel very honored to get such great input from our community of customers. And they really have been that's a real driving force for our roadmap. And I'm looking forward to continuing to work with you. I suspect I'll be working with a number of you as we get this M2 underway in beta. So I'm really looking forward to that. And we're just eager to continue to build that bond.